What could this possibly mean? Well, it's hard to tell, but we're going to try to break it down. Let me make sure you guys are with me before we continue on with this. Sometimes we have issues with the stream. Looks like you guys are you guys with me? I don't think so. Let's wait for Tom to give us the green light on us being live. Sometimes if I switch out of the view too quickly, for some reason, it won't take the show live yet. So I'll wait for Tom to give us the green light and we'll continue on with the show today. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so we're live. Okay, good. So I'm going to start over because it looks like the front of the show got cut off. But basically, the controllers are aware that Halloween is not quite over yet. Halloween in the occult goes all the way to the 5th of November, which is Guy Fawkes Night. Now, we've done videos on this. This particular video that we did last year, I usually re-upload these once a year. But in this instance, I'll just put a link to this in the pinned comment. 5th of November, appearing in several time travel films. So in this live show from October of last year, I actually talk about the 5th of November, what it means, how it has to do with Samhain, which is an occult holiday. Now, many of you already know about all this, but what you probably don't know is that this date appears in these time travel films where it should not be, and it appears consistently in 3 separate time travel films. So I'll go ahead and put this link in the pinned comment so that you guys can check that out, because it kind of does apply to this first story that we're going to cover today, and that is needles found in a KitKat bar. In fact, several KitKat bars. We're going to read the story first, and then we're going to break down the symbolism behind this story and why they went with this story. Needle found in Halloween candy from Ohio trick-or-treating, police say. Truly disturbing. Disturbing reports of tampered trick-or-treating candy were recorded in Ohio over the Halloween weekend. The police division urged parents in the area to check their children's holiday treats after an unidentified child reported finding a sewing needle planted inside a KitKat bar they received. Following the report of the KitKat bar, the division received a second call about another sewing needle, this time in a bag of Sour Patch Kids. Why would anyone do this? We've all heard of these types of things happening, but to actually have something or someone do this in our community is very disturbing. So far, the 2 incidents are the only reported. Lorenzo noted that the 2 children were unrelated and that nobody was injured. Loreno said that the house and location of where the tampered candy originated from is still unknown. So look at this. This is what they supposedly found, this needle inside of a KitKat bar. Now, what is this really about? Let's break this down. Now, we had done a video on the KitKat bar. We had been on the trail since 2015 when we decoded the YouTube logo put onto the KitKat bars. Remember that? In this video from 2015. Well, there's more to this. What is KitKat? And what does it really represent? Well, when you look at the packaging for this, now, I have actually a degree in graphic communication, and this is all we did during the degree that I got at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. And I'm not saying that to brag about this. I'm saying that so that you understand that I understand how marketing works and that nothing on this packaging is by accident. It was developed this way on purpose. Okay. Now, let's get into this because KitKat, the K and the K stick out. And of course, I believe the K and the K represent 11 and 11 alphanumerically. And if you multiply 11 times 11, it's 121. And you could surmise that that could represent the year 2021. And I believe articles like this are basically gaslighting articles. Okay? You've got 2 KitKat sticks, right? They stick you, and they put a needle in it. Pokemon stickers. And the needle was added to complete the magic. like a needle in a haystack. The needles in humanity. Now, there are also 3 layers to this KitKat bar. 3 layers and 2 sticks, right? So that's 32 or 23. You could look at it that way. Another occult number. Now, KitKat is an interesting name because if you take the word KitKat, and in this 2015 video, we looked at that, and I'll pin this video in the comments as well. But basically, we looked at the reverse of KitKat, which is TIKTAK. Now, I believe that TikTok was named after this in anticipation of the spamdemic. This is why all the nurses were on TikTok. Remember? Now, they have these ritualistic platforms for a reason. It's why YouTube was launched on Valentine's Day, Lupercalia. Okay, so understand that we're trying to piece together all of the evidence with this. So backwards, this is TikTok. Now, TikTok also sounds like another word. TIKTO. What is that from? Revelation 6:2, which we've been talking a lot about, right? So we have TikTok and we have TIKTO. Here's the word here. Let me zoom in on it so you can see this, which is a variation on TikTok. And there's that white horse again, isn't it? From Revelation 6:2. Bringing the toxon and the TIKTO. What is the TIKTO? Well, it's can be multiple things. It can be fabric, a ribbon, or a mask. Remember the decodes we did on the awareness ribbons? Okay? And how they're associated with disease, sicknesses, illnesses, right? Now, this could also mean a bow. And remember that Mother Cabrini wore a bow. This could also have something to do with DNA, because DNA is like a ribbon. It's a ribbon of information. And, or it could have something to do with like a bow and arrow, where the serpent in the chest is the arrow coming out of the chest, which is demon possession. So there's a lot of things this could be. But what seals the deal is that the rider of the white horse is also wearing a crown. And he basically introduces the rest of the horsemen of the apocalypse. He seems to be in charge of them. And I believe that that first white horseman has already been deployed based on all the symbolism that we've seen over the last several years. Now, we were just talking about sharp objects in candy just weeks before Halloween, weren't we? That we were talking about how in order to give us the medicine, they also have to give it to us with something sweet. Give them sugar so they'll take it down. This is actually what they did with the whole folio spamdemic of 1918. They gave the children sugar to take their crap scene, didn't they? So this is very symbolic. 2 sticks. You need 2 of them, don't you? Now, we don't talk about all of this in this other video here. It was a much more basic decode from 2015, but we did notice that KitKat backwards spelled TikTok. And had I taken it a step further back then, I would have seen the connection to Revelation 6:2, and that would have given us a foreshadowing of things to come, wouldn't it have? So, now, let's keep going with this, because we had decoded several Candyman films, hadn't we? And we solved the mystery of Mother Cabrini, which is what Cabrini Green, where these murders took place in Candyman, this is where it took place, Cabrini Green. We found out that Cabrini Green was named after Mother Cabrini, and she died while she was giving out candy. So Mother Cabrini probably is the Candyman. And we figured out that the bees that the Candyman basically unleashed every time right before he would kill somebody, that this represented the worldwide swarm that would sticker the entire world. They are the bees running around stinging everybody with that's all we can say. Now, they had planned this monument before the spamdemic. Here's the monument here. Mother Cabrini won this contest where they voted for who the next monument would be built, and it was Mother Cabrini. Now, here's the weird thing about this. We'd covered all this. This monument was completed during the spamdemic. I think it was in 2020 this monument completed. And as you can see, the monument is her on a paper boat facing towards Lady Liberty. But then there was a film that we found about Mother Cabrini, didn't we? And it was from 1947. And the film was all about her. And when she was a little girl, she made the paper boat, except it sunk before it ever reached America. So what is this monument really about? Well, I believe it's about the erosion of liberty in the name of medicine. Because the boat sinks before she ever makes it to liberty. Now, there's a lot more to Mother Cabrini that we're not going to go over here, but if you want to get caught up on that whole meme and the sorcery behind that, you can search this channel for Candyman, and all the videos will come right up, because that's the connection that we made between Mother Cabrini. So, back to this story about the needle found in the KitKat bar. I believe these stories are fear-based gaslighting rituals. On one end, they're telling us to glorify Halloween, Samhain, the 5th of November, and dress all our kids up as goblins and little satans and things. And on the other end, there's a fear ritual. But this goes deeper. This is also a VidCo19 ritual as well, as I just explained. Now, what's this next story here? Where did that story go? Oh, here it is. So, here's another fear-based ritual story. And it's important to understand these kinds of things, these memes that they put out there. Another topic that we've covered at length, the Joker. Apparently, a man dressed up in a Joker costume was running around the subway attacking people. Injured 17 people. Now here's the video here. A man brandishing a knife on Tokyo commuter train stabbed several passengers before starting a fire. Literally, this guy was like possessed by the spirit of the Joker. Notice the stabbing aspect to it. This is all ritual about how we're all getting stabbed in the arms, isn't it? 17 passengers, that's the letter that shall not be named. The letter right before R in the alphabet is the 17th letter of the alphabet, which you can't even talk about anymore on YouTube because they automatically assume you're part of that crowd. But look at this. Not all of them were stabbed. Most of the injuries were not serious. The attacker only identified a man as in his 20s, arrested on the spot, and was being investigated on suspicion of attempted murder. His motive was not immediately known. The guy was probably possessed by a demon. Anytime you start dressing up in these costumes, I believe it opens some kind of a gate. Notice this costume dressing occurs during a time in the occult calendar where the veil is coming down. Well, what do you think it does when you start channeling these demons? They can enter you. And then things like this happen. Nippon Television reported the suspect told police he used an earlier train stabbing case as an example. Okay, so the guy copied somebody. He was wearing a bright outfit, a green shirt, a blue suit, and a purple coat, and looked like a comic book character or someone out of a Halloween event. Tokyo police officials said the attack happened inside the Kyo train near the Kokuru station. Television footage showed a number of firefighters, police officials, and paramedics rescuing the passengers, many of whom escaped through train windows. This is right out of the movie. This exact same thing happened in the movie The Joker. He was in a train running around attacking people. So this is what is going on in Japan. Unbelievable. Now, let's move on to something else. This is our next story. Now, understand that climate denial will soon be a strikeable offense on YouTube. Just like the Pokemon sticker denial has become a strikeable offense on YouTube. So please be patient with the code and language we're going to use here as we begin to talk about the climate meeting that just went down in Scotland. Now, this is interesting because we were just talking about Scotland, right? All the decodes we did on Scottish prophecy. Well, here we are. Now, everybody knows that Bo Jiven added us back into the Paris Accords. Here's the climate agreement here, reversing Trump's decision on getting us out of the Paris Accords, right? But understand that this is political theater. Nothing's really changed in the world. Bo Jiven still has the same oil things going on that Trump started, right? And so here is the climate meeting in Scotland, and look at all these private jets. Now, Bo Jiven is slated to be the most aggressive climate president on record, but understand that this is all by design. Okay? Now, what happens next isn't going to be about the current energy policies or the large corporations. It's mostly going to be about our individual freedoms. Now, the hypocrisy of this summit is glaring. What you're looking at here are 400 private jets flown in from around the world to attend this summit, sitting on the tarmac here. Now, I did a little bit of math to see what the carbon footprint of a fleet of jets would make on the environment. Now, understand that I don't believe in what I'm about to tell you, but we're going to use their own science to reveal their own hypocrisy. So let's get into some of the math of what kind of carbon footprint that they actually put down when all these jets showed up from around the world. So I looked at the Independent, I found this article, and it tells us about how many gallons of gasoline each of these jets will burn per hour. So I did a little bit of math, and I looked at it like a 6-hour flight, which would be like a round trip flight. And this is an average, and burns about 1,200 gallons of fuel. Now, not every delegate had a 6-hour round trip flight, so we're just looking at average numbers here, round numbers. So I plugged that into the carbon footprint calculator, right? Because we have 400 jets times 1,200 gallons each on average. Now, understand also that jet fuel is different than regular gasoline, but I just put in gasoline. Jet fuel is probably less efficient, I'm guessing. I don't know that, but you can make the mental adjustment of the efficiency of gasoline versus jet fuel. So 400 jets times 1,200 gallons of jet fuel round trip amounts to about 500,000 gallons of gasoline or jet fuel. So here's what that looks like in terms of their assumption about the carbon footprint, right? We're looking at 500 homes and their energy costs for one whole year. That's the size of a small town, you guys. They just powered a small town for an entire year. What else do we have here? Well, 1,000 cars driven for an entire year. So basically, there's probably 1,000 cars in a small town. So they basically polluted to the point, or according to their science, polluted to the point of 1,000 cars for an entire year. Now, obviously, the hypocrisy is glaring. I mean, it makes you wonder why they have to meet in person. Why don't they do a Zoom meeting or something? What is it that they're doing there in Scotland where they have to show up and see each other in the face? Doesn't make any sense. Now, here's the big white elephant in the room. China did not show up, which means the country with the world's most pollution, with the most people, is polluting at will, according to them. And it's like trying to build a sandcastle on an incoming tide. What difference are you really making? You know, it's crazy because we talk about ending teeterism, right? And we'll go and root it out. We will root out teeterism. And, you know, all of this, sacrifice has happened and everything, right? In our military. But they're saying it's worth the cost because we made America safe. Well, the way they talk about climate change, but all of a sudden we're still buying and trading from China. Now, I'm not advocating that we do anything about this because, in my opinion, this is all hogwash. But if we use their own logic, don't you think that they would be talking about, hey, we can't let China go on with this. They're destroying the planet. Do you see Greta? What is her name? Greedy Greta. Do you see her angry at China? No, you don't. Because it wouldn't be politically correct to be angry at China, would it? Because then they would have to admit that most of the things they buy are from China. We trade with China. We're the ones fueling their quote-unquote carbon footprint, are we not? Do you see the hypocrisy in all of this? How stupid it is? And their circular arguments about how they're going to start taking our rights away as Americans to protect the environment. It's just ridiculous. It sounds good and it sounds noble, but what is it really? It's really about control. So, what is on the horizon for the future of climate control? And that's what we're going to have to start calling it. Climate control. Well, you can anticipate more taxes. They'll call them carbon credits, taxes. So basically the average person will have less of their paycheck that they'll be able to take home. You're also going to see the cost of personal transportation go up significantly, and to the point where it will be unaffordable for most middle or lower class people. You will not be able to have autonomy in your transportation. You'll either have to borrow or you'll have to ride in Uber cars that are electric or whatever. And what this is going to do is going to stratify the freedom of mobility to only people who can afford it. It's probably also going to mean a lot more ordinances and rules surrounding the use of any gasoline-powered engines, including boats, lawn equipment, which we've already seen happen in California. Cars, of course, we've seen that happen in California and New York. No more gas-powered cars being sold in 2035. This is going to translate over to flights as well. They might even put a cap on the amount of flights people can take per year. Cruises, they might let the cruises, they might leave them alone though, because they'll say, look, we put all these people on this boat. But if you really looked at how much cruises actually pollute, it's quite a bit. They're going to put limits on generators. So that's freedom-loving people who want to be off the grid. You're not going to be able to burn your generators anymore. It's all coming, you guys. It's all coming. Now, we'll also see many more rules on what kind of house you can build. The size of your house. You'll probably be taxed extra the bigger your house is. And of course, again, this stratifies the rich from the poor because the poor can't afford to pay extra taxes on a bigger house, but the rich do it with the blink of an eye. There'll be probably rules on where you can build that house. Okay, so these are some of the things that I anticipate are going to happen in the future. We're also going to see fuzzy math when it comes to large corporations and what they're able to get away with compared to the average citizen who literally does not pollute on any scale compared to the large corporations. And they'll remain the biggest polluters, but they'll use their fuzzy math to claim carbon neutrality. So they can still make their huge profits, and there will still be a class of rich people. One prime example is the summit that I just demonstrated, which was definitely not carbon neutral, but yet they used their fuzzy math to allow it to happen when they could have easily just gone on a Zoom call like the rest of us. So let's check in with you guys, and we'll move on to this next story. We're going to talk about Australia and what's going on in Australia. Thanks everybody for joining this morning. Now, this is horrible what's happening in Australia because Australian people are suffering. They're being fined out of existence. And when they can't pay those fines, they're having their bank accounts confiscated. They're having their licenses revoked. They're losing their property. This is what America will look like if we continue on the course that we're on. Now, here's the next story. Now, I don't get too excited about stories like this because all this means is that they're moving on to the next phase of the plan. Washington Post says, how does a spam-demic start winding down? You're looking at it. So, I mean, I'm glad some of the pressure is off, but we all know that this isn't going to end here. Let's read this article. The spam-demic isn't over, but new cases nationally have dropped below 75K per day, less than half the number in August. U.S. will soon reopen land borders to stickered visitors. So it's open, so it's ending, but with caveats. So the restrictions are going to remain in place in terms of stickered visitors. More than 2 million people boarded flights last Sunday, not too far from pre-spam-demic travel levels. I think we should boycott the travel industry. I don't ever want to get on a plane ever again. So, this is what's going on across the world. Let's look at this next story. How the spam-demic has added to labor unrest. So, the media just can't bring itself to put the blame where the blame is due as to why people are not coming back to work. It's like they can't say the word mandate, or they can't say the word Pokemon sticker. In fact, I searched this whole article and not one place does it mention the Pokemon sticker or mandates. Not one place in this entire article. They want to blame wages. They want to blame working conditions, and all that's true, but they didn't care about that before. Why weren't they talking about that before? This has been going on for a very long time. The working poor. And all the presidents promise to solve the problem, but no one ever does. Now, of course, wages and working conditions are part of it. But in my opinion, this most current unemployment has to do with the mandates being pushed onto the workers that they don't want to comply with. I mean, have they done any polls, like real polls, where they ask people why they're not coming to work? Because if they did, people would say, you know what? I don't want it to be a requirement that I get a Pokemon sticker. I don't want it to be a requirement that I got to wear a mask all day. That's probably what they would hear. So that's what's going on here. Let's get into this next story. Now, this is why I don't think this whole thing is over yet. How often do VidCo-19 crap scenes cause heart issues in children? So they just approved the Pokemon sticker for kids, didn't they? And this article basically tries to justify the risk of these heart issues. Now, so far, here's what they're saying in this article. Got to be careful here. They're saying that 11 in there are 11 confirmed cases of this heart thing in 100,000 males that are 16 to 29 years old. Now, I want to emphasize the word confirmed cases, because nobody has any way of knowing if that's all the cases, if they were actually with a magic wand able to find every single case of a person that had heart stuff going on, right? We know it can't be any less than the 11 confirmed cases, but we know that it could be a lot more, couldn't it? There's no guarantee that they can give us that they found every single case, because people don't report, do they? Sometimes. Or maybe they don't know they have a heart issue. Or maybe they don't go to the doctor. A lot of people don't even go to the doctor. We don't live in a perfect system where all the holes are plugged, where you're going to find every single case of something. So this is just pretty much what they've been able to confirm and identify. Now, they admit here, and this is the crazy part, they admit that they don't have a lot of data on 12 to 15-year-olds who got this heart issue. So what happens when you don't have data? You're guessing. And just a year ago, they told the world that there was no risk, that all Pokemon stickers were completely safe and effective with zero risk, right? And this is what they're basing all these mandates on. Changing science. Because science changes by definition, doesn't it? As more data comes in. Now here's our next story. They're now saying that because VidCo-19 is different than any of the other viruses, that crap scene iMoon City is better than natural iMoon City. Really? Okay, we believe you. Now, remember that as recently as 6 months ago, you couldn't even talk about natural protection from VidCo-19. They even tried to say in articles like this that a lot of people who got VidCo-19 didn't have any protection after that. There were no antibodies. Zero antibodies, zero protection. And then they're like, oh, well, maybe some people had maybe 2 months of protection after infection. Like this article. This was from I think this was 2020. Yeah, September 2020. We can't rely on iMoon City to protect us. They're only saying 2 months of protection here. And I've read articles back during this time frame that said some people didn't have any protection. They actually tried to say that they had no antibodies to VidCo-19. But then this article says you have 6 months. So which is it? 6 months, 2 months, no months? Which is it? Oh, I forgot. We have to see more data first. Well, why is it that when people start talking about this stuff before it happens and they get struck out? But then when it all comes true, then the scientists are heroes. Makes absolutely no sense to me. So in this article, they're saying that they find that there is protection from the crap scenes, that it's more consistent than protection from infection. But both last at least 6 months. Okay, so now it's 6 months. So you see how they're slowly giving in. They went from no protection to 2 months, now to 6 months. Because they know that there's protection. They know it. But they're trying to pit their crap scene protection against natural protection by saying it's better. This is what they're saying in this article. Wow. It's a question that scientists have been trying to answer since the start of the spam-demic, one that is central to the rancorous political debates over VidCo and the crap scene policies. How much mooning of the city does someone have after recovering from VidCo-19? How does it compare with mooning the city provided by the Sticker Nation? The Centers for that has weighed in for the first time in a detailed science report. released with little fanfare Friday evening. Of course, it's a little fanfare because it keeps changing. Reviewing scores of research studies, they found that both infection-induced and sticker-induced Moon the City are durable for at least 6 months. Well, that's what a bunch of people were trying to say. YouTube. But it took this team of scientists to pour over the data to make sure, right? Now, the reference that we used for proof of that back then were articles from the science community, okay? But we're not allowed to read that and talk about that. Even if you show a study where they've been saying this for the last decades, as long as I can remember, that has been the case. But this article goes on to say that still, after all that their crapsine Moon the City is better, provides higher and more robust, more consistent levels of mooning the city to protect people from VIDCO-19 than infection alone. Okay, whatever you say. Now, let's get into this next story. Oh, let's look at this. Oh, we already covered that. Okay. Now, this is the new mayor of New York, Eric Adams. And it looks like blah, blah, Blasio lost. Now, here's the crazy thing. This guy still backs the mandates. Are you kidding me? How can this be? You mean that the firefighter and police unions of New York, you mean that their voices were not heard after they were throwing garbage over fences and a huge crowds of people backing them? Because they were angry because they felt like disposable heroes? Now do you see how voting doesn't matter? It doesn't matter. You can have every person in the streets saying that they don't want something to be. And then when it comes election day, the very same things happen. Everything else is just smoke and mirrors. Adams still backs the mandates for municipal staff. He backs the passport system for indoor dining. And they don't care what the firefighters and policemen say, even with the new mayor. Now, here's the crazy part. Blah, blah, Blasio has now put in for governor of New York. I wouldn't be shocked if he won. Understand that none of these people work for you. None of them. And it's all just smoke and mirrors. Always has been, always will be. You got to wake up to that. Or you become part of the problem. You keep voting your consent for these people, thinking something's going to change. How many times do you have to vote to understand that nothing's going to change? The only change comes from within. It comes from opting out of the system. It comes from being a nonconformist. And then other people start not conforming. And then altogether, we make a statement. It comes from being independent from the system, being not in this world. Being in the world, but not of it, which is what the Bible says. And then what happens? You remove their power. You stop believing in men. And you start believing in God, and you start having faith. Let's go into the chat here. New York, Gotham City. I agree 100%. A lot of garbage in the streets now in New York. People are upset. Now we're going to see how the people of New York respond to this new Mark Adams mayor who is still backing the mandates. It'll be interesting to see. I hope that the protests don't go away. I hope that they are now moved to Mark Adams' residence and protest outside his residence to send a message to him. Because until things change, people are going to be upset. People are going to be upset. I don't blame them. All right. Thanks everybody for showing up. Devin says, break down the movie Isolation, please. Okay, I can try to take a look at that. Yeah, I might have covered that before. I decode so many films. All right. Marion O'Brien asked for the same decode. Okay. And Devin Johnson. Huh. Let's pull it up. And there it is. Is this 2005? Is this it? Is this the one you guys want me to look at? Let me know. An Irish horror film. I've been trying to kind of like not do too many of these horror films. You know, we lose a lot of people when we get into these horror films, and for good reason. You know, I try to stay away from this stuff, even though I do my best to try to, you know, not show all the gore and stuff and the fear. I think that's just bad juju. But 2015? Okay, let's try that again. Isolation. I bet you the first one was based on... Oh, here we go. Isolation, IMDb. Here we go. 2015. This one does not have a Wikipedia page, which means it may be a... Let's take a look here. So this is it. All right. Okay, we might be able to take a look at that. That's the girl from... she was in the 100, which we just decoded, remember? She was one of the 100 children that came out of the... They were like the fallen angels. So maybe we'll take a look at that. I'll pull it up and start watching it and see if anything shakes out of there. Yeah, a lot of you don't like the horror genre, so we're usually operating at about 70% capacity when I start covering some of those films. Some people tune out. That's okay. The horror films are not any less important. It's just that some people are sensitive to that. But, you know, it's crazy. You go on to, you know, you look at all the films released, and probably about half of them are horror films. It's weird, the world we live in, where horror films are now like the #1 watched genre. It's crazy. It's really crazy. And that's why we have to cover them, because a lot of people are watching these films. There's a 2021 one too, huh? Oh, geez. I'm confused. I'll research that after the show. 2021. Okay. Okay, I got to run too, you guys. I love each and every one of you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll get into that isolation and see if we can't find the correct one. You guys have a great day. Take care and be safe.